And that's when everything changed. Everything took off from there. Once I started making longer form videos, I treat everything like someone is trying to click off.
Jordan hosts The Long Play, the YouTube channel which has gone from 0 to over 20,000 subscribers in 10 months alone.
I break down the business behind sport in the UK and the EU. Who are the intermediaries in a football sale? How much money do they make?
How do you think that will change the way that they have conversations around sport?
Helps you understand maybe some of the short-term sacrifices that your club is making.
And now honing in on B2B sales specifically,
it changes the dynamic of the conversation, and it will take someone off piste and you'll build connection a lot faster. It happens in person and networking events quite easily. The discipline and the consistency will get you out of any funk. I don't like the chopped up short form, even though I do it because I have to, because it's the game.
Welcome to Curating Life Lessons. Today we have Jordan Macaulay. Jordan hosts The Long Play, which is a YouTube channel which has gone from 0 to over 20,000 subscribers in 10 months alone. His top 5 videos each rank well over 100,000 in views. And outside of his YouTube channel, he is sales manager at the recently acquired Hoffy, where we met. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jesse. Thank you for having me, and thank you for making me feel welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay, so could you tell us what is The Long Play and why did you set it up?
Sure. The Long Play is a platform that I've created. I break down the business behind sport in the UK and the EU. I'm on a mission to make passionate sports fans 1% more informed than they already are. Why do I think it's taken off? Well, I think there's like an absence of this information out there. There are so many platforms that you can find gossip, football, content. Why is my team playing well? Why is my team playing rubbish? Who are my team buying? What are my team doing on the pitch? But off the pitch, a lot of decisions that happen off the pitch drive what happens on the pitch. And there's not as many platforms out there that talk about that stuff. So I think there's a need and a want and a desire for that information. So my goal is to bring it to the populace.
Cool. And in terms of that want and that need and desire, how is it currently being addressed? And by that, I mean, how do you do your research for the episodes?
Yeah. It starts with natural curiosity. I'm a neek. I'm from South London. I call them neek or a nerd. I like this stuff myself. So let's give you an example. I'm a Man United fan. Man United have been a part of so many big moments in football for the past 20, 30 years and beyond. We've bought so many football players. I love it when my club buys Paul Pogba for £90 million. That's amazing to me. He's an amazing player. One of my favorites. But also, it's fascinating to me, is like how Man United can buy people like Paul Pogba and spend so much money so regularly. That's interesting to me also. Why are Man United able to do this, but maybe not so many other clubs at the same frequency that Man United can? Also, a football transfer, for example, is a sale. It's a deal. I worked in sales my whole career. Generally, whenever a sale happens, there's like intermediaries in between a deal happening that make money or put the deal together. I've been one of them for 10 years. So alongside the transfer happening, it's just like, who are the intermediaries in a football sale? How much money do they make? How do they put things together? What does this mean for Paul Pogba himself? What does this mean for Man United as a club? That stuff is interesting to me, not just Man United have bought Paul Pogba. So it starts there. The research starts there with just like natural curiosity. Like, what do I want to know more about? Once I've figured out the idea that I want to discuss, I then go online and I see if there's any content that's been created about it already, whether it's in long form newspapers, whether it's other YouTubers, whether there's podcasts discussing it. And I try and listen and just understand if someone has attempted to talk about the subject before. If not, then I go on a little bit of a mission. I dive deep. I'm a subscriber to most of this information sits in long form format with, I guess, platforms like the Financial Times or The Athletic. It's a bit legacy media-ish. It's usually like targeted towards an older demographic and it's usually behind a paywall. I subscribe to some of those platforms and my goal is to bring it in a more digital, forward-thinking manner to a younger audience online in short-form content or shorter-form content in video content as well. But usually I'm reading long-form articles, long-form journalistic pieces, and looking at company accounts on Company's House. There's a lot of information that you can find there. A lot of information. Every year, Manchester United have to submit their accounts, and if you look into if you want to take the time to read Manchester United company accounts or their earnings calls every single quarter, you'll get a lot of information about the business and how well they're doing. And
Would you be able to give some specific examples of the kind of information you could find in that
yeah,
that
absolutely.
the average person wouldn't know?
Okay, let me switch up the example then. One of my recent videos I did was about Anthony Joshua. I love Anthony Joshua. He's my favorite boxer. I've watched every single one of his fights. I think he's amazing. Not only is he good at boxing, he also makes a lot of money. So I'm just intrigued to know how he invests his money, where he spends his money, how much money he's making. Not many people know about that, but Anthony Joshua has companies. And on companies' accounts, if you go on his company accounts, it's called Sparta Promotions. It breaks down how much money he makes every single year from his fights and his commercials, specifically to the pound. It's in his company's accounts for free. You can go and look at it right now. That doesn't really get spoken about as much, but him fighting and losing to Daniel Dubois, or him fighting and beating Francis Ngannou earlier this year, is like all the highlights are all over Instagram, but this stuff isn't as popular. So that kind of thing is quite clearly displayed there. And it actually shows you how much money he makes from fights and how much he makes from sponsors, how much he makes in the UK and how much he makes overseas to the pound every year for the past 7 or 8 years. It shows you who his sponsors are, his new sponsors that he's got. It's amazing. It's very, very detailed. And that's what you have to do when you have a public company. So things like that are just readily available in the public domains. And I'm just a bit of a nerd, and I'm willing to actually go and read them because I find them fascinating. So yeah, I take those bits of information and I try and digest them in a palatable manner for social media.
Interesting. So if you took all the information that you read, 100% of it, what percentage would you say makes it to your curated videos?
I'd say around 60. One thing I've learned over this YouTube journey is like an ebb and flow of a video or a piece of content or a newsletter. And sometimes there's a piece of information that's semi-interesting, but it does lower the blood sugar of a video. Sometimes it's a little bit too detailed or a bit too granular. And sometimes you can probably make the same point you're making without including every detail. So 60% of all the information that I come across makes it to the end product, to the end user. And that's just a decision I have to make. Will this be compelling to the end user? Do they need to know this as well? So I'd say about 60%.
Cool, makes sense. And then taking like a step back, why should people care about the business behind things?
Every single decision that you make in your life is driven economically. Every decision. Whether economics is at the forefront of the decision or not, there is an economic component to the decision that you make, even down to tapping your Oyster card when you go out in London on a public transport, or whether you take a job, or your opinion about your favorite sports team is probably driven by a decision that they've made economically about whether they bought a player, whether they're building a new stadium, whether they're playing a friendly in America before the season starts. All of those things are economics driven. And I think if you have a little bit more information, you have way better decision-making capability. Your opinions will just be a little bit more informed. And I never think there's a downside to just more information. So I think it's just important for people to have an understanding of why decisions are made at the economic level. And then you can have way more empathy. You can have way more understanding about why someone did that, why a company did that, why an institution did that, and the results that came from it. I think if you miss that piece of information at the beginning, your opinion or your take or your perspective will just be maybe less informed as it could be.
So on that, in terms of your take and your opinion,
Yeah.
how do you think going through this process of the research and also people watching your videos, how do you think that will change the way that they have conversations around sport?
I'll give you an example and try and piece it all together. Let's take football, because football is the most prominent sport in the UK. And I've used the example of player transfers already. But like a massive part of football discourse in the UK is about a football club buying or selling a player. It's like so common. So a lot of times a football club will buy a player and that player won't perform very well. And the fan will say something like, that player is rubbish. We shouldn't have bought that player. We should have spent an extra piece of money and bought this player instead. But there's quite often a lot of economic decisions why you couldn't, or that club couldn't have bought that other player. And if the person or the fan, in this instance, in my hypothetical example, knew some of the limitations that the club had about buying a player at a certain value or on a certain wage, then they wouldn't have had that opinion and they wouldn't have such strong, visceral, maybe incorrect opinions about their team. And then the discourse would change slightly. And I think that piece of information, however small, can actually just help inform a fan a little bit more. Or, if I give you another example, a lot of clubs play like long-term strategy games, and over time they want to get to a certain place. And if they get to that certain place, then they'll be able to do more things, whether it's buy more players or build more infrastructure or build a bigger training facility or something of that nature. But in the short term, a fan just wants to see a team win on the weekend, and it's like having that long-term vision understanding from an economic perspective just helps you understand maybe some of the short-term sacrifices that your club is making, and just makes you a little bit more, again, informed about the journey that your club is going on. I think having that information is just always better. You just have a different perspective, a more informed, refined perspective. And I just think that is beneficial to every single sports fan at every single level, whether it's at advanced level or whether you're a child or a younger fan and you're, I guess, getting into it for the first time. More information is never a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. And then in terms of thinking about sport with this commercial lens,
Yeah.
what kind of collateral benefits do you think that's had for your sales career?
Well, the biggest thing that I think I've learned on this journey, my platform is called The Long Play.
Mm-hmm.
And I've doubled down on that thought that like success, as you know it, whether it's for an individual, an institution, or a team, is long. Everything's long. Everything takes time. Mm-hmm. And that's like the biggest takeaway I've had from this journey in the last 10 months or so, is that everything that you see that you think is doing well, there's a lot of time that's gone into it. And there's usually some long-term thinking that's gone into it, some strategy that's gone into it. Whether you're a football player or an athlete and you're 25 years old, in theory you're young, you've probably been doing that for 10, maybe 20 years already, that skill, and it's taken time to get there. Whether you're a club, Manchester United are almost 100 years old as a club, but we've been amazing for the past 25, 30 years. So it's taken 75 years to get to this point. That's a long time. The Premier League is the biggest and best football league in the UK, in Europe, or maybe even the world. Premier League was started in 1992, and we've been probably the best for about 10 years. So like, it's taken 2 decades to get to this point. It's like things take time. Time is key to success. So the biggest takeaway or piece of collateral that I've had is that success in business, in life, in sport takes time. So put the time in, think long term, and that is the blueprint, I think, to doing things. So yeah, that's the biggest takeaway I've had in sales and business. Success is not quick.
Gotcha.
Very rarely quick.
I like that.
It's a long play.
Super strong. In terms of thinking that way then, and turning our attention to you growing your YouTube channel,
Yeah.
how much time between thinking of the idea to getting your first YouTube video out was there? And also, how much more preparation was there prior to this? Like, how long had you been consuming this sorts of information?
Yeah. So The Long Play, as you know it today, is a YouTube channel, and at the centerpiece of everything is a newsletter. So I write a newsletter every single week. It goes out Monday at 11 a.m. UK time to my newsletter subscribers. It started as a newsletter in 2022, and I wrote a newsletter on Substack every single week, and it was cool. Substack has, a small discovery engine in its platform, but it was almost like making a song and putting it on Spotify. I had no promotion or traffic being driven to it. You know this market very well. And then one day, I was busy on a particular weekend and I didn't have time to write the newsletter. And it didn't go out on my Monday slot. But I had no accountability. No one was emailing me saying, where is the newsletter? And I did it again, and I did it again, and I did it again. And I didn't like it, but I just basically stopped writing the newsletter. Mm-hmm. But I really wanted to, I like the idea. I like writing the newsletter. I like researching the topics. I knew there was something here. So a year later, I was really thinking about this, and I thought, I want to write the newsletter, but I need to drive traffic towards it. I need to add a video component to it. So the idea was always there from 2022, and around the top of 2024, I started adding videos to the whole piece. So I started with short form videos. So I have short form videos that go out on Monday and Thursday on YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and Instagram. And then I added long form videos. I found a lot that a topic about the business of sport could not be done in 45 seconds. I needed more time. So I started making longer form videos, and that's when everything changed. Everything took off from there once I started making longer form videos. And again, it kind of ties back into my earlier point about time. The more time you have, generally the better. So the idea has been there for a few years, but the execution really took off when I started making videos. And now the newsletter has grown in line with my videos growing as well. So the videos really, really helped.
Interesting. In terms of different channels of your business growing alongside each other, how do you think about the crossover between your long form content and your short form content in terms of the audiences?
Yeah. I used to think they were linked. I don't think that anymore. So short form content, I see it as a world of its own. There's people who like things in my head, I have it like this. I have 3 separate chunks. People who like things in 60-second clips, people who like things in 10-minute clips, and people who like things in 1 hour plus clips. It's almost like 3 groups of people. There's some people who is going to read the headline. There's some people who's going to read the first paragraph, and there's some people who's going to read the entire 1,000 word article. Like there's like 3 separate people. So I used to think that someone who does something in 60-second chunks, does something in long form pieces, that's not the case at all. I have friends, like some of my personal friends, who don't watch me in long form. They just watch me in 60-second chunks. And I have some friends who don't watch the short form. They literally only watch the longer form stuff and read my newsletters. So I actually see them as 3 completely separate businesses. And I literally have to cater to 3 different demographics of people every single time I put a piece of content out. I used to think there was crossover. There isn't. I even started, when I started making long form videos, at the end of my short form videos saying, if you want to see more about this, watch my long form video on YouTube. And I would try and track the attribution of traffic, and there was like none. No one watched the Instagram 45-second bite-sized bit and then watched the 12-minute version on YouTube. There was like none. You're either long and you find me on long form platforms, or you're short and you find me on short form platforms. It's quite fascinating, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Out of curiosity, which of those 3 buckets would you put yourself in as a consumer of media?
I'm a long form guy. If I see a podcast and there's like 8 or 7 or 8 clips of the podcast, just give me the whole thing. I'll watch the 2 hour thing. I love the long form.
Nice.
I like the long form. I love the long form written and the long form video. I don't like the clips. I don't like the short form. I don't like the chopped up short form, even though I do it because I have to, because it's the game. I don't like it. For me personally, give me the longer the better.
I like that. And now thinking about other quote unquote commercial lessons that you've learned from YouTube.
Yeah.
What would you say are the top 3 lessons that you've learned from doing YouTubing these past 10 months?
Yeah. So one I've kind of already touched on about time, but I think connection with a consumer and a creator is like due to time. So funny enough, I watched an amazing video not too long ago about the election this year, the US election. And I guess the subject or the premise of the video was how much time Trump spent with the fan base on podcasts compared to Kamala. So Kamala did SNL 60 minutes. She did like more traditional legacy media. It was like bite-sized. The View, I think she went on The View or something like that. It's like really like bite-sized, like choppy stuff. Whereas Trump did Rogan, Theo Von, Bossing with the Boys. He did like quite a lot of long-form content. And I think they broke it down. They said something like Trump did 51 hours of podcasts in his promotional run. And I think Kamala did like 11 or 13 or something like that. And I think Trump just built way more connection over longer periods of time with the fans and with the user base. And I think there's something in that that's like connection comes with time. So if you can be compelling over longer periods of time, you're onto something. Sponsors love it. Fans love it. Your business will grow exponentially with time. So that's the first thing. Definitely number 1 is time. The second thing is packaging is everything. And it's made me start thinking about other things as well. But if you go on Netflix, you have so many options of content to choose. But that thumbnail for that movie is paramount in your decision about whether you watch it or not. And the little blurb on the left-hand side about how they describe what movie it is or what's happening in the movie is everything. So same thing on YouTube. The thumbnail and the title is everything. A lot more emphasis should be placed on how good the thumbnail looks and how well the title is written. I never thought about that before. I thought the premise of the video, as in like just like what you're talking about, would carry you. Nah. Thumbnail and title are so important. Like how something is packaged is very, very important to getting a consumer to consume. And that, again, doesn't have to just be in content. Even if you went to a store and you wanted a bottle of water, there's so much choice. The bottle, the packaging, the branding is like super key in your decision making as a consumer. So packaging is number 2. Packaging is very, very important for everything. I don't know what my third one would be. I think it would be something to do with, it's like the beginning of a video. I know you're kind of asking me like a more general like life commercial lessons, but like you have to, I treat everything like someone is trying to click off. People have so much choice in life. It's like time is precious. People have so much choice. So if you want to consume something, whether it's a song, whether it's a movie, whether it's a book, whether it's a piece of content online, there are so many other places that you could be right now on the internet. So treat every piece of content like someone is trying to click off it. Every sentence that you say, every frame has to be good to keep someone engaged. So there's like a lot of meticulousness in the packaging and the first maybe minute of the content that you have, and try and stop someone from clicking away. And that's, again, you can kind of apply that in life. If you're at a social event or a networking event or someone, like there's so many people in the room, people want to meet everyone. There's so much choice. So for them to be impressed by you, give them a reason to stay here because they want to go somewhere else. So I think the 3 lessons would be time, packaging, and just the assumption that people have choice and you have to keep them here by being impressive initially. What would probably be the 3 lessons that I've taken from this.
Cool. Nice. Super clear. And particularly that second point around packaging made me think of Liquid Death, bottle of water, which is like a classic example.
They've nailed it. What about you? You're on your YouTube journey. What about some of your lessons?
Top 3 lessons for me.
Maybe not even 3, but just like some that stick out to you since you've been doing the podcast.
I think the top one would be, and this is very much with the end in mind, or the long term in mind, would be like focusing in on what are the questions that I would really find interesting, because I think it's very difficult to like think about or it's very difficult to put yourself in the shoes of like a potential audience, particularly when I haven't necessarily found my audience yet. So I'm really trying to focus on what are the questions that I would want someone to ask if they were watching the podcast, both in terms of like the kind of pre-prepared questions, but then also like the follow-up questions. So if I think of a follow-up question, it's not only like, oh, this would be an interesting question to ask. It's like, no, I have to answer it for this to be good quality. That would be my first one. I think my second one would be increasingly focus on like each video, like hone in on one thing which has to be better. Because I think otherwise, if I like try and boil the ocean and try and like every video focus on every little thing, then each video maybe takes a little bit too long, and then you kind of like lose a bit of momentum in your kind of personal workflow. So for me, I've like tried to nail like one thing each time, and overwhelmingly that's been around like editing and lighting and things like that. And just before we start, I made sure that like every single light was on in the room, because it's so much easier to darken the video than it is to lighten it up afterwards.
I didn't realize how big audio was when I first started. I had no idea. I just thought me speaking into a really shitty lapel mic would be fine. And all my comments were like, this is amazing content, get a mic. And I'd be like, why a mic? And I got a mic, spent 250 quid on it. I'm thinking, what on earth am I doing spending 250 pounds on a mic? Everything changed from there. There's literally like an inflection point. If you look at my channel, the first video I put out with a mic, everything started going up. Fascinating.
Interesting.
Fascinating.
That's a cool little chunk there. And now in terms of workflows, what would the average month's cadence of videos look like, and how do you plan for that?
Sure. So I mentioned earlier, the centerpiece of everything is a newsletter. Goes out Monday at 11 a.m. UK time. 2 short form videos go out on the short form platforms Monday and Thursday. And 2 YouTube videos, longer form, usually between 8 and 12 minutes, go out every month, on the 1st and the 15th of every single month. So that is my content calendar every single month. Generally, at the beginning, it was very, very scattergun. I'd have an idea, I'd make a video about it. I'd have an idea for a newsletter, I'd write a newsletter about it. Then, as I got into it, I realized that was unsustainable. I needed to build a system. So generally, what tends to happen is I write a newsletter, and that newsletter can form one, sometimes two short form videos and one of the longer term videos. I try and make the whole thing done from one topic rather than just so many different topics in a given month. So generally, there's like a wider idea, which is, again, one I used earlier. How does a football transfer work? That's an entire YouTube video. That's 2 or 3 short form videos. That's a newsletter or 2 I can get out of that. And it's like a system that's done. So in a month, there's 2 grandiose ideas, and I make different pieces of content around those two ideas, and I become way more systemic, and it's made me so much more efficient. And it kind of ties back to the idea being really, really important. If the idea is good enough, there's going to be a lot of strands of content that you can make in different forms, whether it's written or whether it's short form, whether it's long form. So really focus on the idea, really focus on the packaging, and everything will cascade from there. And that's something I've definitely learned since starting this YouTube journey. Systems. It's honest, you can apply that to life. You can apply it to sales, you can apply it to the gym, health and fitness. Systems and planning is super key. So that is the workflow cadence. 1 grandiose idea, newsletter, 2 short form videos, and a long form video as well.
Makes sense. And do you outsource your video editing, and who do you outsource it to?
Absolutely. A good friend of mine called Casey. He is my editor and has been from the very beginning. I knew from the very beginning that editing is not going to be a forte of mine, and I do not have the time to do it. I watch a lot of Ali Abdaal. I love that guy. I've watched him from the very, very beginning. And he often makes videos about building a YouTube channel or building a personal brand. And one of his first tips, tricks, pieces of advice is outsource your editing as fast as possible. I've heard him say that routinely since 2021. So when I started on this journey, I just followed that advice from the very beginning. So I outsource my editing, and I try and focus on the things that I'm good at, which is like the research, the ideas, and the actual content itself, and get rid of that whole thing. I don't have a creative bone in my entire body. I'll outsource that to my friend Casey. He's amazing. So outsource the editing, but I do all the research and stuff myself. Until around 2 months ago, I had an email from a random person. His name's Harry. And Harry said, I love your channel. I'm fascinated by all of the things that you write about. I would love to be a part of it. Can I help with the research? And I was like, sure, let's have a call. I had a call with him for an hour. And he had so many ideas, so many things that he had seen me talk about that he wanted to know more about, so many things that he wanted me to do a video on. And he was like, what if we did a video on this? Can I help? I was like, sure. So then me and Harry started doing some research together, and we put a video out. And then I had a stream of people after that video came out say, I would like to help you as well. I'd love to be a part of this channel. So maybe 3 of the last 5 videos have had help. People have wanted to do research with me. And it's made for a really collaborative process, actually. It's been amazing. So I'm speaking to random people in random parts of the world about researching sports business topics. So lately, and as of the last maybe 6 weeks, some of the research has been collaborative with other people as well. But most of the time, all the research, the writing, the script writing is all done by me.
That's really cool. And that's also like very valuable as well, in terms of often what like VCs are looking for when they're investing in a business is, oh, do you have like the community? Do you have like an active, engaged community, 1,000 true fans kind of thing?
For sure.
And it sounds like you're more than just on the cusp of it, which is quite cool.
It's quite cool. I think that Harry has sparked something, because I think once someone saw that Harry was a contributor to the research, I just had an influx of people emailing me, asking me to do the same thing. So yeah, there's something in there. I don't know where it's going to go. I'm going to probably need a researcher full time at some point. So yeah, we'll see.
That's cool. That's really cool. And then in terms of thinking about things in the long term, what for you are some of the kind of blue sky goals that you have for the channel?
So my purpose is to make sports fans, again, 1% more informed than they are today. That is like my mission. I'd love to make 1 million sports fans a little bit more informed about the business of sport. That's the blue sky thing, for sure. Information to sports fans would be amazing. And I think we're on the path to doing that. I have some smaller goals as well. It's like an inspiration thing. First, I talk about athletes and executives within sports institutions quite a lot. So there's an inspiration goal that I want to have, that someone watching my content can just look and understand that there's more ways to succeed in sport other than actually playing. You can be an executive, an agent, you can be a founder, you can be a CEO, You can be an operator in a sports company and be very, very successful. And I want to tell those stories because those stories aren't often as told. And for me growing up, for sure, my favorite and my role models were athletes and entertainers. And it's like, if I didn't play for Chelsea, then what am I going to do? I genuinely felt like that when I was like 13, 14 years old. I felt like I had to play. And I want a younger person potentially watching my content to understand you don't have to play. There are many other successful routes in sport that don't require you to be an unbelievable, talented athlete. It's an inspiration goal that I have. Third goal that I have is I love the intersection of sports and tech. Sports tech is like amazing. I've worked in tech for the past 4 or 5 years. Sports tech is a growing sector in the tech scene. It's loosely aligned with health tech as well. And I'd love to have deeper understanding of the sports tech space and bring that to my fans as well. I have an idea to bring a community of people to invest in sports tech companies as well. So I'd almost like to create a community product which allows founders of sports tech companies access to a very dedicated sports tech community that I'm building. And if they're raising rounds, that community can invest in those companies. But in turn, that company will benefit from a whole bunch of executives and fans consuming their product, which will grow their product. There's a media engine with the Long Play platform as well that they can benefit from as well. So it's like an intersection I have to bring sports tech access from an investment level to the community of people at the Long Play as well. It's something I'm working on for 2025.
I love that. That's really cool.
Those are the
really
three blue sky objectives I have.
Solid. And now, thinking about the way you've been speaking and the way that you speak to camera, how did you, one, develop your confidence with speaking to camera?
Yeah.
And also, two, when you're speaking, and I'm going to find this out when I'm doing the editing afterwards, there are very few fillers, very few ums or ers.
I've worked in sales for 11 years now. Sales has so many forms: in-person networking events, cold calling, is where I cut my teeth. Zoom, post-COVID, the Zoom era has been a completely different format of selling. And generally, I speak for a living. And now I manage teams, so I have to be quite succinct with my delivery. It's something I've just naturally developed over time. So I think a career in sales has just helped me speak or helped me develop speaking. So when a camera came in front of my face, it just felt natural to me. It didn't really bother me at all. In fact, I think I'm quite good at it, and I actually quite enjoy it. I don't mind watching myself back. I don't mind listening to myself. I've done it for 11 years. I've had to get better. So I think I've just cut my teeth in a sales environment, and it's just helped in content creation for sure. When you spend 6 hours a day cold calling random strangers, you have 4 or 5 seconds at the beginning of a phone call to grab someone's attention. You have to be succinct. You have to be clear. You have to be very, very intentional with your delivery. I did that for a number of years in my first sales job. So I think I've just been grounded in speaking succinctly and speaking clearly. And I think it's removed filler. And I think it's made me a lot more intentional with the sentences I'm saying. I think that's helped. It's almost like 11 years of sales has led me to this point of content creation. So I think I have a leg up on people just by nature of that.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Like the 10,000 hours of intentional practice.
For sure.
And focusing in on something you said there around when you're cold calling someone or when you're speaking to someone for the first time on a sales call, what are maybe some of the tips or tricks that you have for getting someone's attention?
Sure. Okay. Simon Sinek says start with why. That's his whole thing. It's very easy when you meet someone in person. I'll start with in person and go on the cold call in second. In person is to say, I'm Jordan. I do this. I'd reframe that and say my goal, my blue sky goal, or who I help. If you reframe it that way, instantly it changes the dynamic of the conversation. That's an excellent way of doing it. It takes it off piece slightly and gives the person that is receiving the information something to work with. The second thing I have is it's really easy to start a conversation and it says, hi, I'm Jordan. What's your name? Sure. How are you? Sure. What do you do? Like, that's a really, really stiff conversation that you have. Try and take the conversation somewhere else immediately, as early as possible. So as soon as you meet someone, if you could just say, it's cold outside today, isn't it? And you're going to go, oh yeah, it's absolutely blitz. My car was frozen over. All of a sudden, your conversation has just taken a different turn. and you can just start on a less conventional path. It's difficult. If you get good at it and practice it, try and notice something about that person that you can speak about immediately that's just like left of center, and it will take someone off piste, and you'll build connection a lot faster. It happens in person at networking events quite easily. You know, I don't know, you meet someone, it's like, dude, your shoes are amazing. Where did you get them? All of a sudden that person is like a pattern interrupt, and they're like, actually I got them from Russell and Bromley or something last week. Oh, they're killing my feet though. So I was like, oh yeah, like you've gone somewhere else. That's the first thing.
What's interesting about that as well is it kind of sidesteps the almost like showdown or status game between like, oh, what do you do? What do you do? And instantly you're like sizing each other up, which is problematic.
It's a leveler right away. Like you're just on a common ground. You just found a common path. It's perfect. So that's in person. Tip and trick I have is just like try and take the conversation somewhere else. And if you're introducing yourself, try and introduce yourself with your purpose, your mission, or who you help first. On a cold call, again, it kind of ties into something I said earlier. If someone calls your phone and it's a stranger, immediately you got to think about it from their perspective. They're going to see a number that they don't recognize, and they're going to answer it. If they answered it, again, they're trying to get off the phone. You have to give them a reason to stay early and clearly. Audio quality, goes back to having a mic, is key. Be crisp and clear in your delivery. I'm Jordan, who I help, what my goal is for you. Do you have 30 seconds so I can speak to you about this? It is so clear and crisp. You've given them reason to stick around, and they will say yes or no. You've given them a reason to stick around on the conversation. Try and deliver that as succinctly and as clearly as possible in the first 3 or 4 seconds of them answering the phone. That is a tip for a cold call. And you can apply that to many areas of life. If you're speaking to someone in person, a stranger, try and be intentional with what you're saying and what outcome they can get from it. And you'll probably get more buy-in than you think. And then on a sales call, like a Zoom call, I do this pretty much 4 hours a day at this point. Again, if it's the first time you're speaking to someone, just try and build connection. Try and take the conversation somewhere slightly left of center. You're here because you're going to sell them something. But if you notice something in their background on their Zoom camera, be like, oh, that's an amazing plant. I've got one of those plants. Like, what'd you call your plant? They're going to go, oh, I call her Rosie or something like that. It's just like, you just gone somewhere different. You just build a bit of connection. So it kind of stems back to what I said earlier. The beginning, be intentional, be clear, be succinct. And those are the tips and tricks I have for sales in different forms.
Cool. I love that. And now honing in on B2B sales specifically.
Yeah.
What would you say are 2 common mistakes that people make in B2B sales?
Sure. There's 2 actually that I think are the most common, and they are pipeline coverage and pipeline velocity or speed. And I'll go one by one. Coverage, think of sales as a conveyor belt. If you are a seller, you're an individual contributor, you are a salesperson, your pipeline is a conveyor belt. So when you first start a job, you are finding deals and opportunities out there, and they are at the beginning of your pipeline, of your conveyor belt. So what tends to happen is over time, they move down towards closing for you getting or losing that deal, but it moves down the conveyor belt. And what I see often, especially now I'm a people leader, is people spend a lot of time building a pipeline initially, and they start closing some deals, getting some success, making some money, and they don't refill the beginning. And now all of a sudden, 6 months later, you've had a really good period, you've made some money, you've closed some deals, but you have nothing left at the beginning. You have to constantly have pipeline coverage and have different deals at every single stage of your pipeline all the time. All the time. The best salespeople never let their foot off the gas and never stop finding new opportunities all the time, even when they're stupid rich or winning all the time. That's the biggest mistake I see. People get comfortable and lazy, and they start singing when they're winning, and they forget the input to the very, very beginning. Never make that mistake. I've done it myself. It's not fun. Second mistake, is speed, velocity. It ties into what I said earlier. People have choice. If they're coming to your company to solve a problem, they're probably going to 3 or 4 other companies as well to see if they can do it better or cheaper. So speed is key. If someone inbounds to your company saying, I would like to speak to you about your service, respond to them fast. Get on a call with them. If someone is interested and you've spoken to them and we've had a great conversation and they want to go to a next step, send them a follow-up immediately. I see too many salespeople say, that was a great call. it's 2 p.m. They have another call, or they go and make some food, and then they don't send a follow-up until maybe the next morning. That doesn't sound too long, but they probably had another call with another company after your call, and someone responded immediately with a follow-up. Or they might have had a conversation internally at the company that evening, or they might have gone to their boss and said, this is a company that I found, and they want to show something to that person. If you haven't sent it to them, and you send it to them the next day, you just kick yourself, or you just shot yourself in the foot. It's like, be prompt with your responses, your follow-ups all the time. Velocity is key. And that's another mistake I see often. People get lazy. They send things the next day, or they say they're going to send something and they don't send it until 2 days later. That's going to kill your deal. There's too many options out there right now. There's too much choice. Someone is out there working faster. Someone is out there working more diligently than you. Don't slip. Too much slippage comes in effort in your pipeline and your response times. So those are two mistakes I see in B2B sales.
Nice. I like it. And now thinking about two hypothetical examples of two different underperforming sellers. One, you think they've got natural raw talent, they're hungry, but for whatever reason, they're not closing deals. And then the other, you honestly think they're probably not going to make it in sales, but you still want to like maximize their time at this company. How would you turn around these two individuals?
Okay. So number one, super talented seller, just not really doing it right now. So with that person, I try and understand what their ultimate North Star goal is. A lot of sellers I speak to, especially in the teams that I've managed, have been like monetary focused. I want to make X amount of money. Sometimes it's not money. Sometimes it's just learning or skill based. I want to be better at X. Sometimes it might even be like a childhood thing. I want to prove my dad wrong. He was a salesperson. But like it's been that way before. But let's just assume it was money, because money is most of the answers that I tend to get. I want to make 250K in a year. That's the number that will allow me to buy a house. That will allow me to go on holidays. That will allow me to do X, Y, Z. So what I would do is speak to that person and reverse engineer it. You want to achieve X. What do we need to do working backwards from there? If you want to make that much money, you need to be at this percentage of your quota. To get to this percentage of your quota, you need to close this many deals at this particular size. To close this many deals at that size, you need to speak to this many people a day. Pipeline coverage. To speak to this many people a day, you need to invest this amount of time in researching the companies that you need to speak to in the first place. And that will probably churn out something like you need to be speaking to or approaching 30 people a day, every single day. And it literally can be as granular as that. And you and I, if you are the person, will buy into this tactic. Every single day, you have to speak to 30 people. If you speak to 30 people every single day, or attempt to speak to 30 people, you will get to the outcome that you have. And if you're underperforming, honestly, the discipline and the consistency will get you out of the funk. Just do it every single day without fail. And it's not, I'll do 150 people on Monday, and that means I've done my 30 for the 5 days of the week. It is 30 people every single day. The discipline and the consistency will get you out of any funk. It will work. You just have to believe in it, and you have to do it. Not just for 3 days. Oh, I've done it for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Do it for 3 months. It will work. That is how you will turn an underperformer around. You have to just get them to believe in doing the daily inputs every single day, showing up every single day. And again, it might not just be sales advice. You can apply that to life. It's just like, do the workouts, meditate, do it every single day. Don't slip. If you do it consistently over a 3-month period, you will see benefits. Put the videos out, put the newsletter out. The inputs are key. So that's how I would turn the first hypothetical example around. Just in a funk, just do the inputs consistently. Don't take a day off. The second person was an interesting one. You probably think they're not going to make it. What would I do? If they're not going to make it in my team long term, but you still want to maximize the opportunity, I think there's probably one thing that they're not particularly good at in the sales game. Like sales is like quite multifaceted. There's probably one thing in particular. So I probably just work with them to try and improve that one thing. It might not work out at this business, but if you can leave my team becoming a better seller in some form, that's a goal for me as your manager. So a lot of it is let's say it's prospecting, it's like finding good accounts to speak to. We would just work on just being better at that. Like, tell me your process for searching for companies that you think would be a good fit for this business, and let's just try and improve on it. But let's say you're good at prospecting, maybe it's cold calling, or maybe it's like once you've got someone in, how do you then build connection with them? I probably do some analysis, listen to some of your calls back, join some of your calls, and just see how you're doing it, and just work on that one thing. Again, long term, it's probably not going to work out. It might be going through a performance plan process, and it might just like, I don't see an upside here. But if I can make you a more skilled salesperson that you can use later on in life, that's a win for me, even if you're not really delivering results on a quarterly basis. So I just work on you on building a skill, just making you better.
Makes sense.
And I think that'll be useful for you forever in your career. So
Makes sense. And drawing an analogy with football or sport, thinking about the man management aspect of it.
yeah,
How do you navigate people's egos at different stages of their career?
it's probably been the biggest thing I've had to learn, to be honest. I was an individual contributor for my whole career. I was a seller. I only cared about myself. I was very selfish. If the team was not doing well, but I was top of the leaderboard, didn't care. It's just me. It's me, my number, and my deals. And I became a manager just under 2 years ago. And all of a sudden, overnight, I had to completely invert that. Now the team is the most important thing. Me is the bottom priority in everything. We only go as far as like the lowest performer on my team. I have to do everything. My team is the only thing I think about. My team is my pipeline now. It's just like, are my team happy? Yeah, I still don't think I'm good at it now. The results say that I'm doing okay, but like, it's a complete culture shock, a complete shift in thinking, a complete shift in how I approach things mentally. So yeah, management and managing egos. It's fascinating. Some people like to be really informed. Some people like to be left alone. Some people like to be like scolded quite badly. Some people like to be like wrapped in like a warm blanket and speak, like learning the different personality types, learning when to be public with criticism, when to do it in a more private manner, learning tells when the team is just like not feeling it, or turning up the heat when the team is doing really, really well and like pushing even further. Like, these are things that like I have to be very vigilant on now. It's a never ending process. I wouldn't say I'm good at it. I read so many books about it. I listen to so many podcasts about leadership and managing people now. Yeah. It's a never ending process, but managing egos is tough. It's very, very tough.
Gotcha. In terms of key resources, are there any books on people management that you've read recently? Books or resources?
So, no, not read. I am a YouTube guy, both consumer and creator now. I listen to Simon Sinek a lot. He's good. Didn't know who he was before I watched him on Stephen Bartlett, funny enough. Really liked what he had to say. Now I consume a lot of his content. He's just got a lot of really actionable leadership advice, which I really like. So I like Simon Sinek a lot. Is there anyone else that comes to mind? Not really. I go with Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek is my resource that I listen to consistently, at least, about people leadership, building businesses, and he would be the one I would point to, for sure.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And now thinking about your life in general, to wrap things up, what is the advice that you would give yourself 10 years ago?
It would be say yes to more things. I'm 32 now. When I was 22, I spent a lot of time at home. I don't know why. People would be going out. I'd just be like, nah, I'll chill at home. Go outside. The magic happens outside. Meet people. Do so many things that you form an idea of what you like and what you don't like. And it kind of ties back into my whole thing earlier when you asked me, like, why is information important? It's just like, get as much information in your brain as possible, experience and information, so you can determine the things that you want to double down on later in life or the things that you want to turn off. Like, that is what I would do. I think I spent too much time between the ages of maybe 19 to 25 just at home. Go on the holiday. if you're just a little bit tired and someone's like, let's go out tonight, just go out, just do it. You just wish for that time back later on in life. Just go out, put more data into your learning model and experience. That's what I would say to myself 10 years ago. I got better at that, but it took me until maybe around 25, 26 when I got more confident professionally, started making a bit more money. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to go out. But like, go out. Go out. I spent way too long indoors thinking, oh, I don't have the money for this, that, and the other. It's like, you have one good year, that money comes back, especially at that age. It's just like, just go out. And you'll probably get to that good year, having been out, having met people, having experienced. So the advice I would give to my 22-year-old self is say yes.
Cool.
More.
Super clear. I really like it. It also makes me think of the fact that we're both remote workers.
Yeah.
Means that you spend a lot of time at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely very pro remote working. And I think it's the future, even with the kind of the pendulum swing that's happened in the last couple of years. I would say though, that anyone, particularly at the start of their career who is remote working, is you have to balance that out with like being outgoing in other areas of life.
For sure.
If you're remote working and then you're spending your evening in and you're spending your weekend in, I don't think that's necessarily the most optimal environment for growth.
Agreed. 100% agreed. Mm-hmm. I just remember too many examples of. I'll give you some specific examples actually. My mate one time was like, I think we should go to a salsa lesson. It'll be jokes. And I was like, absolutely not. Why would I do that? But I look back at that, I'm like, you should have just done it. Like, what is the downside of just doing it? I remember sometimes my friends are into horses quite a lot and they would go to Cheltenham and Epsom. I live in South London, so Epsom's not too far away. And I was like, oh, I don't like horse racing. Like, no. It's like, I just don't know why I just wouldn't have done that. Especially now, because I'm flipping making a channel about sport and stuff. It's just like, that would have been an amazing experience to just go. I still haven't been to the horses, but I had so many chances to go when I was younger. Just go. Just go. So that would be the advice I would give to myself. I'm intrigued about your answer. What would your answer be?
I think 10 years ago, I was like very argumentative at every opportunity, particularly around politics, particularly around psychology and like social values. And I really enjoyed being that way. And I think it kind of like honed my thinking. But I also think there are lots of relationships that I like burnt from some part ego, but also some part I was like, I like wanted to like, oh, if I disagreed with someone, I wanted to like hone down and figure out like this was the thing that we were disagreeing on. And I also maybe felt that like if we were having an argument, I was like, I kind of felt it as like almost like respectful, gladiatorial, like, oh, we're actually bonding this way. And I do think there are lots of people who when you argue with them or disagree with them, you do bond with them. But I also think there are other people, back to your point around like some people, like confrontation and some people like being wrapped in a blanket. I do think that if I'd much earlier on in life, kind of instead of being so direct with my disagreement and more tilted the dial towards like asking questions, like understanding where they're coming from. I think I think about a few moments in my life that it would have just been more productive, and I would have like valued that individual conversation or that individual relationship with someone more. Yeah, I think that would be my kind of key piece of advice.
Where do you think that came from? Was it a goal to always be right? Do you think it was something from childhood or something that made you debate a lot? Where was that born from?
Definitely childhood. My family. I think there's 4 kids and obviously and 2 parents, and around like the dinner table growing up, this constant competition for like who can speak and who cannot. Yeah. And so I guess also to your point around like you have to be concise. You have to get your point across, and also we're all with your siblings, you never really have to, or most of the time, you never really have to fear offending them because they're like always going to be there.
Yeah.
And so I think transitioning from like the permanency of siblings versus other people in your life who might not be so permanent, you kind of have to maybe dial it back a little bit. And then also, me and my dad, I would say definitely bond through like debate and argument. And there's always just that like underlying mutual respect, even when it gets like quite frosty. And so I think just being much more conscious that other people are not like that is it's important.
Okay. So question for you then, going back to the whole people management thing. Let's say I'm placing you now on the team. So you're not the leader, you're like one of the people in the team. So let's say it's a sports team, or let's say it's a sales team, or let's say it's just any business or any group of people. For you yourself, do you react better? And by react better, if I had to engineer the optimal conditions for you to succeed in whatever that thing is, do you like to be wrapped in a blanket and be told you're the greatest? Or do you like to be fearful of critique or the sack or being dropped from the team?
Interesting.
How do you operate the best?
Praise publicly, but criticize very directly, privately. I think if we had if we were in like let's say a team meeting, daily stand up, and you said like, Jesse did X, Y, and Z really well, I would love that. I'd be like, okay, that's great. But I think if it was like really deep criticism that I might, get a bit triggered by, maybe triggered is too big of a word, but something along those lines, I think that I would want like a really direct conversation in private, because I think I'd be much more in a space where I could like really hear it and like really dive into it.
Okay.
And there's a twofold reason for that. One element is ego, like I just wouldn't want to be criticized in front of other people. And then the other element is like ego, but like a step back from it, which is like reputation, in terms of like in a company, in an organization, you're always building your reputation. And so I think oftentimes in meetings like that, if you go after someone, that can be the reputation that they get. Because people rarely remember everything that was discussed in a meeting, and they remember the most like vitriolic parts. But the flip side of that is, part of working with people is being able to handle criticism in group environments as well. So there's that aspect.
If I flip you to them being the leader, so one thing I've learned is that as the team gets bigger, you can't do as much individual stuff as you can when the team is smaller. So imagine you were managing a football team of 30 individuals. Would you want the culture? Imagine your goal was to optimize the team for success. So we have to win the league, or we have to hit this number this quarter. Would you want your leadership style to be one of warmth and confidence for everyone, and like it's like a really friendly, fuzzy place that everyone's in, and there's no fear of you can't do anything wrong, oh, it doesn't matter, you're fine? Or do you want it to be a fearful culture of shit, have to be better, have to perform this weekend, have to close this deal? Which culture do you think yields success en masse?
En masse, I think the safest option for the organization is a cold, ruthless environment.
Okay.
I think that's the safest route for an organization. I think a warmer environment, or not necessarily warm, because that sounds for me maybe a bit fluffy, but a more kind of open environment, I think gives more space for ideas to breathe.
Yep.
And I think that there's a bigger upside from that.
Okay.
So I think it's less safe, but I do think the upside is greater.
Fine.
And I'd really double down on that point around like, and this is like Silicon Valley, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah. Silicon Valley would be the example of this, where like failure is so openly embraced. And then, corporate America would be the opposite of this. And that's because corporate America, you've got a massive organization where suddenly the cost of failing is so large versus like a tiny startup.
I think about these things all the time. I'm just like, what is the optimal conditions for success? And whatever success is in your life, is it cold, ruthless, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being dropped, fear of losing? Or, I'm using general terms, but warm, fluffy, everything is fine, I have the space to fail, but I'm also comfortable. So if I don't perform, I'm not scolded as much. Like I often don't know. The real answer is it's a blend of both, but I don't know which one yet. I don't think I'll ever know. I think it's always going to change, but like it's fascinating to me what motivates people, what pushes people, and how you get the best out of everything. That's just like fascinating.
It's really interesting. And I think focusing on individuals around that, there's a lot of attention on rags to riches stories
Yeah.
where someone comes from like a very deprived background and then achieves massive financial success. But most very successful entrepreneurs, even if they didn't come from a wealthy background, they normally came from like a fairly middle class background where there was that safety net. So I do think a certain safety net, even if you go the cold, ruthless route, is important for people.
That's interesting. I'd actually say in sport, if we focus on the sport thing, I think from a business perspective, yes, there's more of the examples that you gave. In sport, there's a lot of people who came from nothing that do really, really well. And I think the motivation of coming from absolute nothing is greater in sport than it is in business. From what I've seen anyway, the examples I give. I don't know if you ever, do you know who Francis Ngannou is? Francis Ngannou is or was the heavyweight champion at UFC. And if there's one thing I leave you with, you should watch his first Joe Rogan as soon as you can. It is the most incredible story you will ever see. The guy grew up in Cameroon, in the mines in Cameroon, fled Cameroon through the whole of North Africa, got on a boat to Spain, wound his way up in Paris where he learned to box, was just a physical freak of nature and was really good at boxing. Someone like saw talent in him, got him over to America, entered the UFC, became heavyweight champion of the world. Wow. He actually fought Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua in the last 18 months and now makes millions of dollars. And he's like an incredible, incredible human being. Incredible. His story is unbelievable. He literally came from absolute nothing. And I think there is so many stories of that in football where people literally are running away from like extreme poverty. And I think that, I think if there was person A who's coming from absolute nothing and there was person B who's coming from foundations, middle class background, a wealthy family, I'm betting on person A. I think that motivation is greater.
I think everything else equal, I would agree with that. I'd bet on person A. But I think, to take an extreme example, I think there are so many Elon Musks, Bill Gates, who are, in a favela or in a slum somewhere who never made it out.
They can't get out,
Yeah.
Fair.
But I think on an individual basis, I'm with you.
Fine.
Interesting. Okay. What do you think the advice would be from yourself in 10 years' time to you now?
So there'll be two pieces of advice. The advice for my 22-year-old self was say yes to so many things and build a data set of experiences that you know and like and dislike. The advice I think would be, you've got enough data now, double down on the ones that you really like, double and triple down, and like don't worry about missing the other stuff. Do the ones that you like, the experiences, the people, the jobs. It's almost like having an ad campaign, which you probably know very, very well, and you put 20 ads into the campaign and 3 of them deliver a decent return on ad spend. Turn off all the others. Invest all your time and energy and money into the 3 that are really, really working, and just like go crazy with them. That's what my advice would be. So it's like the things that I think I deem important, the people I deem important, the things that I like doing, do them, and like figure out a way in which you can do them constantly. They will derive happiness for you. They will derive energy. It will create opportunities for you by focusing on those. Don't feel like you need to spread yourself thin and do things that are less important or less fulfilling to you. And kind of like what I said earlier about the underperforming salesperson, it's like the second piece of advice here is the daily inputs is how you get out of this rut or how you really, really excel. Do the things daily. So one of the things would be travel. One of the things would be exercise. Like exercise regularly and consistently. Don't slack. Don't go in peaks and troughs. When you don't want to go outside in the morning because it's cold and it's rainy, just go to the gym. Similarly, when it's warm and sunny and you just want to chill, go to the gym. Like, do it all the time. Be consistent. So those, I think, will be the 2 things that my 42-year-old self would tell my 32-year-old self. The things that you like and the people that you think are fulfilling to you and bring you upside in your life. invest a lot of time and energy and money into those, and try and be as consistent as possible. At this point in particular, will just create abundance.
Love that.
I think so.
Cool.
I think.
And then final question, what is your favorite quotation and why?
There is a very famous British philosopher called Molly Mae, and she famously says, "You have the same number of hours in a day as Beyonce," and she got absolutely pillaged for it online. And I don't know why, because I completely agree with her. She, like, everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. You can choose to use it in as many ways as you want. Use it in ways that bring you happiness and joy all the time. Don't waste time. I'm going to sound a little bit hypocritical here. Life is long, but life is also short. It's just like, use your time intentionally. I think looking back and having opportunity and not using it, I think, is something that will eat away at most people. And I think if you listen to older people, or you speak to older people and you ask them, like, is there anything you regret from like 30 years ago? They would always be like, I didn't do this, or like, use your time intentionally, I think would be my... So yeah, the quote is, you have the same number of hours in a day as Beyonce. But like the wider message behind it is just like, use your time intentionally, because I don't know, I've met some people who, or I've been close to people who like have passed away, for example, and it's just like, shit, they would probably give everything to have the time back, or someone who's got ill and they can't do the things they used to be able to do, or something like that. It's like, it's not fun. So use your time intentionally, I think, would be the main message.
That Molly Mae thing is quite interesting in and of itself. You know, if that quote had been by like John Stuart Mill, or like a famous philosopher, or Barack Obama, like, it would have, people just would have like very defaultly accepted it. But I think because it's Molly Mae, because of the kind of type of persona that she is, probably comes across as a bit ditzy in other environments. Like, it's very easy to like hone in on it and criticize it. The fundamentals of the quote is solid.
The message is, as you said, the fundamentals are sound. For some reason, the messenger didn't go over well at that particular time. And the funny thing about that was, I watched the interview on Diary of a CEO that she did. I watched her season of Love Island. I watched Stephen Bartlett. I'm intrigued. I'm fascinated by her. She's just like a fascinating individual. I don't watch her content, but like the idea of Molly Mae is like interesting to me. Watch the podcast. Nothing happened for 6 weeks, and then someone clipped up that clip, and it went super crazy on Twitter, and then it just took over the UK for about a week. And I was just fascinated by the discourse. It was just like something about it coming from... There's so many people who have said the same thing in different forms, and no one has had that reaction. But something about Molly Mae that's like struck people the wrong way. I think she's 100% right. I think she's fantastic as an individual. But yeah, that would be the quote that I live by at the moment. Just like the time, use time intentionally in everything that you're doing.
Love it. Okay, super strong note to end on. Really appreciate your time, man.
Thank you for having me, bro. Thank you.
Cool. Excellent. Job done.
That was fun.